The Fall of Constantinople, a Warpath Warriors documentary. The date is May 29, 1453. Dawn breaks over the Golden Horn. The sun rises on a city that has stood for 1,123 years. By nightfall, it will no longer exist. Not as ruins, not as a battlefield, but as something else entirely. A city that has survived Huns, Avars, Persians, Arabs, and a dozen other sieges is about to experience something unprecedented. Not conquest, transformation. The walls still stand. The Theodosian Walls, built 1,000 years ago, are the greatest fortification system ever constructed. Triple-layered, 60 feet high, miles of stone that have turned back every army that has ever faced them. This morning, they are intact. By afternoon, they will be breached. But the breach is not the horror. The horror is what follows. Inside the Hagia Sophia, the greatest church in Christendom, 7,000 people are praying. They believe the prophecy. The prophecy says that when the Turks break through the walls, an angel will descend from heaven. The angel will hand a sword to a common man standing near the column of Constantine. And that man will drive the invaders back. They are waiting for the angel. The doors are barred. The icons are gleaming in candlelight. The hymns echo off the dome. Outside, they can hear the screaming. The angel does not come. What comes instead are janissaries, elite slave soldiers of the Ottoman Empire. They break down the bronze doors with axes. They pour into the nave. And what happens next will be recorded by witnesses from both sides. Recorded in such detail that historians will spend 5 centuries trying to make sense of it. Trying to understand how a city falls not just militarily but psychologically. How an empire of 1,000 years can vanish in a single day. How 7,000 people waiting for divine intervention can be divided into categories. Valuable, worthless, expendable, in less than an hour. This is not a story of battle. It is a story of what happens after the battle ends. When the soldiers stop fighting and start calculating. When human beings become commodities. When a city that believed itself eternal discovers it is mortal. The screaming in the Hagia Sophia lasts for 3 hours. Then it stops. Not because the violence ends, but because there is no one left to scream. To understand how this happens, we must go back. Not to the siege. To the system that made the siege inevitable. To the moment when Constantinople stopped being a city and became a target. The year is 1204. Constantinople is the richest city in the world. It has been the capital of the Roman Empire for 900 years. Not the fallen Western Roman Empire. The living, breathing, continuing Roman Empire that never fell. The empire that preserved Roman law, Roman administration, Roman continuity. The Byzantines do not call themselves Byzantines. That is a term invented by later historians. They call themselves Romans. Romei. And Constantinople is the queen of cities. Basilousa. The city has a population of 500,000. Paris has 40,000. London has 18,000. Constantinople has running water, public hospitals, universities. It has the Imperial Library with 100,000 manuscripts. It has the Hippodrome where 80,000 spectators watch chariot races. It has palaces, churches, monasteries covered in gold and marble. It has the Hagia Sophia, a dome that seems to float in space, that makes visitors fall to their knees weeping at its beauty. It has wealth that European knights cannot comprehend. Silk merchants, spice traders, goldsmiths who work with techniques lost to the West. And it has walls, the Theodosian Walls, built by Emperor Theodosius II between 408 and 413 AD. A triple defensive system. An outer wall 40 feet high. An inner wall 60 feet high. 96 towers. A moat 60 feet wide. No army has ever breached them. The Huns tried. The Avars tried. The Arabs besieged the city twice, once for 5 years. The walls held. The Byzantines believe their city is protected by God. That the Virgin Mary herself watches over Constantinople. That the walls are invincible not because of engineering but because of divine favor. This belief is about to be tested. Not by Muslims. By Christians. The Fourth Crusade was supposed to go to Egypt. It was supposed to strike at the heart of Muslim power. But the Crusaders have no money. They cannot pay the Venetians for ships. The Venetians make a proposal. Help us conquer Zara, a Christian city on the Adriatic, and we will transport you for free. The Crusaders agree. They sack Zara. The Pope excommunicates them. They do not care. Then they receive another proposal. A Byzantine prince named Alexios Angelos has been deposed. He promises the Crusaders money, supplies, and military support if they restore him to the throne. All they have to do is attack Constantinople. Attack the greatest Christian city in the world. The Crusaders debate this for approximately 3 hours. Then they agree. In April 1204, the Crusader fleet arrives at Constantinople. The Byzantines are confident. They have the walls. They have Greek fire, the incendiary weapon that burns on water. They have 1,000 years of military experience. What they do not have is unity. The city is divided by factional politics. The army is underpaid and demoralized. The navy has rotted at anchor. The Crusaders attack the sea walls along the Golden Horn. They use siege towers built on ships. On April 12, 1204, they break through. The Byzantine emperor flees. The Crusaders enter the city. And then something happens that will echo through history. Something that will poison relations between Eastern and Western Christianity for 800 years. The Crusaders do not occupy Constantinople. They destroy it. For 3 days, the soldiers of the Fourth Crusade rampage through the city. They loot churches. They smash icons. They melt down golden chalices and crucifixes for bullion. They stable their horses in the Hagia Sophia. They place a prostitute on the Patriarch's throne and make her sing obscene songs. They burn the imperial library. 100,000 manuscripts, including the only copies of works by ancient authors, go up in flames. Knowledge that will never be recovered. They rape nuns. They murder priests. They desecrate tombs. The Byzantine historian Nicetas Choniates witnesses the sack. He writes that the Muslims who had previously besieged Constantinople were merciful compared to these Christians. He writes that the Crusaders spared neither age nor sex. That they showed more cruelty to fellow Christians than to infidels. The Crusaders establish a Latin empire. It lasts 57 years. In 1261, Byzantine forces recapture the city. But Constantinople is not the same. The population has dropped to 30,000. The palaces are ruins. The churches are empty. The treasury is depleted. The empire is a shell. It controls Constantinople and a few surrounding territories. The rest has been carved up by rivals. But the Byzantines rebuild. Slowly, painfully. They restore the Hagia Sophia. They reopen the university. They try to reclaim their former glory. They never succeed. Because the sack of 1204 did something that no military defeat could do. It broke Byzantine confidence. It shattered the belief that God protected the city. It proved that the walls could be breached. And it showed that Christians could be just as savage as any barbarian horde. This is the wound that never heals. This is the psychological damage that makes the fall of 1453 inevitable. Because when the Ottomans finally come, the Byzantines are already defeated. Not militarily. Psychologically. They are fighting not just an enemy army. They are fighting their own certainty that they have been abandoned by God. The Ottoman Empire rises in Anatolia in the early 14th century. It is a small principality, one among many Turkish beyliks that emerge as the Seljuk Sultanate collapses. The Ottomans are not particularly powerful, not particularly wealthy, not particularly sophisticated. But they have one advantage: location. They are positioned directly across from Constantinople, on the Asian shore of the Bosphorus. They can see the city. They can watch its ships. They can study its defenses. And they can wait. The Ottomans expand gradually. They conquer neighboring Turkish principalities. They push into the Balkans. They defeat Serbian and Bulgarian armies. By 1400, they control most of the Byzantine Empire's former territory. Constantinople is surrounded. It is an island of Christianity in an Ottoman sea. The city survives through diplomacy, through tribute, through playing Ottoman factions against each other. The emperors become expert negotiators. They send gifts to Ottoman sultans. They attend Ottoman weddings and funerals. They support Ottoman princes in succession disputes. It is a humiliating existence, but it keeps the city alive. Then in 1451, everything changes. Sultan Murad II dies. His son Mehmed becomes sultan. Mehmed II is 19 years old. He is intelligent, ruthless, and obsessed. Obsessed with one thing: Constantinople. He has studied the city's history. He knows about the sieges. He knows about the walls. He knows that every previous attempt to take the city has failed. And he believes he can succeed where everyone else has failed. Not through bravery, through technology. Mehmed understands something that previous besiegers did not understand. The Theodosian Walls were built to withstand medieval siege weapons. Catapults, battering rams, siege towers. They were not built to withstand cannon. And Mehmed has cannon. Not ordinary cannon. The largest cannon ever built. A Hungarian engineer named Urban approaches the Byzantine Emperor. He offers to build cannon for the defense of Constantinople. The emperor cannot afford to pay him. Urban crosses the Bosphorus. He offers his services to Mehmed. Mehmed pays him 4 times what the Byzantines could offer. Urban builds a monster. A bronze cannon 27 feet long, weighing 19 tons. Firing stone balls weighing 1,200 pounds. It takes 60 oxen to move it. 200 men to operate it. It can only be fired 7 times a day because the barrel becomes too hot. But when it fires, the sound can be heard 10 miles away. And the impact can shatter walls that have stood for 1,000 years. Mehmed tests the cannon at Rum-el Hizari, the fortress he has built on the European shore of the Bosphorus. The fortress is positioned to control the strait. Any ship trying to bring supplies to Constantinople must pass within range of Ottoman artillery. The Byzantines understand what this means. They are being isolated, cut off from aid, prepared for siege. The emperor, Constantine XI Palaiologos, sends desperate appeals to the West, to the Pope, to Venice, to Genoa, to any Christian power that might send help. He receives promises, expressions of concern, theological debates about the union of the Eastern and Western churches. But no armies, no fleets, no reinforcements. Western Europe is exhausted by the 100 Years' War. The Pope is more concerned with Italian politics than with Constantinople. Venice and Genoa are rivals who will not cooperate. And most Western Christians do not particularly care about the Byzantine Empire. The Byzantines are schismatics, heretics who rejected the authority of Rome. If they fall, many Western theologians privately believe it is God's judgment on their pride. Constantine XI understands he is alone. He has a city of 50,000 people. He has 7,000 defenders: Greeks, Genoese, Venetians, Catalans, professional soldiers, monks, artisans, merchants, anyone who can hold a weapon. Against them, Mehmed has assembled an army of 80,000. Regular troops, Janissaries, Sipahis, irregulars from Anatolia and the Balkans, and cannon, dozens of cannon, including Urban's monster. The siege begins on April 6, 1453. The Ottomans surround the city on land. Their fleet blocks the Bosphorus. The bombardment starts immediately. The giant cannon fires. The stone ball hits the Theodosian Walls. The impact is devastating. Stone that has stood for 1,000 years cracks. Crenellations crumble. Towers shake. The defenders rush to repair the damage. They work through the night, using rubble, timber, earth, packing the breach, shoring up the walls. By dawn, the damage is repaired. Then the cannon fires again. This becomes the rhythm of the siege. Bombardment, repair, bombardment, repair. The defenders are exhausted. They are working around the clock. They have no relief, no reinforcements. The Ottomans rotate their troops. Fresh soldiers every few hours. The Byzantines have no one to rotate. The same men fight, repair, fight, repair. Sleep deprivation becomes a weapon. Hunger becomes a weapon. The city's food supplies are dwindling. The population is on half rations, then quarter rations. Children are crying from hunger. The elderly are dying. But the walls hold. Damaged, patched, scarred, but holding. Mehmed tries a different approach. Mining. Ottoman engineers begin digging tunnels under the walls. The plan is to collapse sections from below. The Byzantines have their own engineer, a Scotsman named John Grant. He countermines, digging tunnels to intercept the Ottoman tunnels. When the tunnels meet, there are underground battles. Men fighting in darkness, in spaces so narrow they cannot swing swords, stabbing with daggers, strangling, drowning the tunnels when they can, setting fires to smoke out the enemy. It is claustrophobic warfare, buried alive warfare. The mines fail. The walls still hold. Mehmed tries a naval assault, but the Byzantines have blocked the Golden Horn with a massive chain. The Ottoman fleet cannot enter. Mehmed solves this with characteristic audacity. He builds a road over the hills behind Galata. He greases the road with animal fat. Then he has his ships dragged overland. 70 ships, pulled by oxen, over a hill, around the Genoese defenses, into the Golden Horn. The Byzantines wake one morning to find enemy ships inside their harbor. This breaks Byzantine morale more than any bombardment. If the Ottomans can move ships over land, what else can they do? What laws of nature will they violate next? The sense of fighting against the inevitable takes hold. Constantine XI holds councils. The debate is always the same. Should they surrender? Should they negotiate? Should they flee? The emperor refuses. He is the last Roman emperor. If the city falls, he will fall with it. He will not abandon his people. He will not seek safety while they suffer. This is not bravery. This is acceptance. He knows the city will fall. He knows he will die. He is choosing how the story ends. The Genoese captain Giovanni Giustiniani offers to evacuate him, to take him to safety on a ship. Constantine refuses. He says he will die a Roman. The city can fall. The empire can end. But he will not run. This decision condemns him. But it also immortalizes him. Constantine XI will be remembered not as the emperor who lost the city, but as the emperor who died defending it. The final assault is scheduled for May 29th. Mehmed gives his troops a speech. He reminds them of Islamic tradition. The Prophet Muhammad said that Constantinople would one day be conquered, that the army which conquered it would be blessed, that the commander who conquered it would be the greatest of commanders. Mehmed tells his soldiers they are fulfilling prophecy. They are doing God's work, and he promises them 3 days of plunder. 3 days to take whatever they want from the richest city in the world. This is the incentive. This is what drives men to climb walls under boiling oil, to charge into crossbow fire, to die by the thousands. The promise of wealth, the promise of slaves, the promise of women. 3 days. On the Byzantine side, Constantine XI makes his own speech. He reminds his soldiers of their history, of Rome, of the 1,000 years they have defended civilization. He tells them they are the last Romans, the last defenders of the old world. He does not promise victory. He promises glory. He promises that their names will be remembered, that their sacrifice will matter. Then he does something unprecedented. He walks through the city, not as an emperor, as a man. He visits homes. He speaks to families. He asks forgiveness from anyone he has wronged. He distributes his remaining gold to the poor. He attends a final service in the Hagia Sophia. Greeks and Latins worship together for the first time in years. The theological differences that have divided them for centuries are forgotten. They are all Christians, all Romans, all doomed. After the service, Constantine returns to the walls. He takes his position with the soldiers. He removes his imperial regalia. He fights as a common soldier. No one will ever be certain where he dies, or how. His body is never identified, but witnesses report seeing him in the thick of the fighting when the walls are breached. Fighting until he is overwhelmed. Fighting until he disappears into the mass of struggling bodies. The last Roman emperor dies as a Roman soldier. Anonymous. Lost. Forgotten in the chaos. The final assault begins at 1:30 a.m. The Ottomans attack in waves. First, the irregulars. Bashi bazooks. Poorly armed. Expendable. Their job is not to win. Their job is to exhaust the defenders. To make them use their ammunition. To tire them. They die by the thousands. The defenders throw them back. But the defenders are exhausted. They have been fighting for 7 weeks. They have had almost no sleep. They are wounded, hungry, and terrified. The second wave comes. Regular Ottoman infantry. Better armed. Better trained. They push harder. They reach the walls. They plant ladders. The defenders push the ladders away. Throw rocks. Pour boiling oil. The Ottomans retreat. Then the third wave. The Janissaries. Elite slave soldiers taken as children from Christian families. Trained from childhood to fight. Converted to Islam. Fanatically loyal to the Sultan. They wear white felt caps. They carry scimitars and composite bows. They move in disciplined units. They do not break. They do not panic. They do not retreat unless ordered. The Janissaries hit the walls like a hammer. They exploit weak points. They coordinate their assault. They support each other. And they find a breach. At the Kirkaporta, a small postern gate, someone has left a door unlocked. Historians debate whether this was treachery or accident. It does not matter. The Janissaries find the open gate. They pour through. 50 men. Then 100. Then 500. They are inside the city. At the same moment, Giovanni Giustiniani, the Genoese commander, is wounded. A bullet strikes him in the chest. He asks to be taken to his ship. Constantine begs him to stay. The soldiers need to see him. If he leaves, morale will collapse. Giustiniani is dying. He does not care about morale. He wants to live long enough to reach a surgeon. He is evacuated. The soldiers see their commander leaving. They panic. The line breaks. The Ottomans pour through multiple breaches now. The defenders fall back. Into the city. Into the streets. Fighting house to house. But it is hopeless. There are too many Ottomans. Too few defenders. The fighting continues for hours. But the outcome is certain. By dawn, the city has fallen. The killing stops. The plunder begins. Mehmed has promised his soldiers 3 days. They take them. The systematic rape, enslavement, and murder that follows is recorded by multiple witnesses. Greek, Turkish, Italian. Their accounts agree on the essential facts. The Ottoman soldiers go through the city street by street, house by house. They break down doors. They search for valuables, gold, silver, silk. They also search for people, young people, healthy people, valuable people. The old and infirm are killed immediately. They have no value. A sword to the neck, a blow to the head, quick deaths. The bodies are left in the streets. Children and young adults are valuable. They can be sold. The slave markets in Adrianople, Bursa, and Constantinople itself will be flooded with Byzantine slaves within days. But first, they must be collected. Families are separated. Mothers are torn from children. Husbands from wives. The soldiers are efficient. They have done this before. In Thessaloniki, in Serbia, in Anatolia. They know how to process a conquered city. They tie the captives together in long chains. Hundreds of people linked neck to neck. They will be marched out of the city, sold to dealers, distributed across the Ottoman Empire. Some will become domestic slaves. Some will work in fields. Some will be trained as soldiers. The attractive ones, male and female, will be sold to wealthy households. For entertainment, for pleasure, for display. This is the fate of thousands. But there are 7,000 people who have chosen a different path. They have taken refuge in the Hagia Sophia. They believe in the prophecy. They believe the angel will come. They have barred the bronze doors. They are praying, singing hymns, waiting for divine intervention. The Janissaries arrive at the church around 9 a.m. They demand the doors be opened. There is no response, only singing. The Janissaries use axes on the bronze doors. It takes an hour. The metal is thick, but it yields. The doors crash open. The Janissaries pour in. The singing stops. What happens next is described by the Greek historian Doukas. He was not present. He compiled his account from eyewitness testimonies. He writes that the Janissaries divided the people into categories. The process is mechanical, clinical. Young men of fighting age are killed on the spot. They might resist. They might rebel. They are a security risk. Their throats are cut. Their bodies are dragged outside. Young women and children are valuable. They are separated from their families, tied together, led outside to the slave pens. The elderly, the sick, the injured are killed. They have no value. Middle-aged men and women are evaluated individually. Do they have skills? Can they work? Are they educated? Scribes, physicians, artisans are spared. They will be useful. The unskilled are killed. The entire process takes about 3 hours. 7,000 people enter the Hagia Sophia seeking sanctuary. Approximately 4,000 leave as slaves. 3,000 are killed inside the church. Their blood runs across the marble floors. The same floors where emperors were crowned, where councils debated theology, where the greatest minds of Byzantium worshipped. Now a processing center for human cargo. The Janissaries are not cruel. They are efficient. They do not torture. They do not prolong suffering. They simply sort. Valuable. Worthless. Live. Die. This is the industrial horror of conquest. Not the passionate violence of battle, but the cold calculation of economic exploitation. Human beings reduced to inventory, processed like grain or livestock. The survivors are marked, branded, tagged with their new owner's mark, then led away. Some will end up in Mehmed's household. Some will be distributed to his generals. Some will be sold in markets. Their lives as Byzantines are over. They are Ottomans now. Property, commodities, their names, their histories, their identities erased. They will be given new names, taught new languages, converted to Islam or kept as Christian servants. Within a generation, their children will not remember Constantinople, will not remember being Byzantine, will not remember that their grandparents were citizens of Rome. This is the true conquest, not the taking of the city, but the erasure of its people. Mehmed enters Constantinople on the afternoon of May 29th. He rides through streets littered with bodies. He is 21 years old. He has just conquered the greatest city in the Christian world. He goes directly to the Hagia Sophia. He dismounts. He picks up a handful of dust. He pours it over his head, a gesture of humility before God. Then he enters the church. He sees the blood. He sees the bodies being dragged out. He orders the killing to stop immediately. The 3 days of plunder are revoked. 1 day is enough. He orders his engineers to begin converting the church to a mosque. The Christian mosaics are plastered over. A mihrab is installed pointing toward Mecca. A minbar for the imam. 4 minarets will be added later. The Hagia Sophia, the greatest monument to Byzantine Christianity, becomes Hagia Sophia, the greatest mosque in the Ottoman Empire. Mehmed declares Constantinople the new Ottoman capital. He renames it Istanbul, though the name takes centuries to become universal. He begins rebuilding, repairing the walls, repopulating the city. He offers tax incentives to Greeks who will return, to Armenians, to Jews, He wants to restore the city's greatness. But it will not be a Byzantine greatness. It will be an Ottoman greatness. The population will reach 700,000 within a century. But they will not be Romans. They will be Ottomans. The palace of the Byzantine emperors becomes a ruin. Mehmed builds a new palace. Top copy. The Byzantine Senate House becomes a storage facility. The Hippodrome becomes a public square. The city's geography remains. But its identity changes. Constantinople dies. Istanbul is born. News of the fall reaches Western Europe in mid-June. The reaction is shock, horror, disbelief. The Pope calls for a new crusade. No one responds. Italian city-states mourn the loss. Venice loses a trading partner. Genoa loses a naval base. But both adapt quickly. They negotiate with Mehmed. Trade continues. The merchants do not care who controls the city as long as they can make money. Scholars flee to Italy. They bring manuscripts, Greek texts that will fuel the Renaissance. Plato, Aristotle, histories, plays, scientific treatises. The fall of Constantinople scatters Byzantine learning across Europe. It accelerates the Renaissance. It spreads Greek language and philosophy to the West. This is the cultural legacy. But the human cost is incalculable. The Byzantine Empire is gone. The last continuous link to the Roman Empire is severed. A political entity that lasted for 1,123 years ceases to exist. The Greek Orthodox Church survives. But under Ottoman rule, the Patriarch becomes an Ottoman official, responsible for the Christian population, but subordinate to the Sultan. The Greeks become a minority in their own city, second-class subjects in an Islamic empire. This status will last for 5 centuries, until 1923, when the Ottoman Empire itself falls, and the cycle repeats. In the years following the fall, a legend develops. The legend says that during the final liturgy in the Hagia Sophia, as the Ottomans were breaking down the doors, a priest was celebrating the Eucharist. When he heard the soldiers coming, he did not stop the service. He picked up the chalice and the paten. He walked toward the southern wall of the church. The wall opened. He stepped inside. The wall closed behind him. The legend says he is still there, waiting inside the wall, holding the chalice. When the Hagia Sophia is returned to the Christians, the wall will open. The priest will emerge, and he will complete the interrupted liturgy. This legend is told by Greek communities throughout the Ottoman period. It is a story of hope, of continuity, of eventual restoration. It is also a story of denial, because the restoration never comes. The wall never opens. The priest never emerges. The Hagia Sophia remains a mosque for 481 years. In 1934, it becomes a museum. In 2020, it becomes a mosque again. The liturgy is never completed. The empire never returns. The legend persists. But reality moves on. The Byzantines who survived the fall adapted. They learned Turkish. They converted or paid the jizya tax. They became merchants, craftsmen, interpreters. They served the Ottoman state. Some rose to high positions. Phanariots, Greek aristocrats who became Ottoman administrators, who collected taxes, who governed provinces, who forgot they were Roman. Within 3 generations, the Byzantine Empire was a memory. Within 5, it was a myth. Today, it is history, a subject for scholars, for documentaries, for romantic fantasies about the glory of the past. But in 1453, it was real. It was people dying in the Hagia Sophia. It was families being separated. It was children being sold in slave markets. It was an elderly woman watching her granddaughter being chained and led away. It was a priest hiding manuscripts as soldiers looted his church. It was a soldier on the walls fighting until his strength failed. It was an emperor dying anonymously in the chaos. It was the end of a world. Not dramatic, not glorious, just the grinding mechanical process of one civilization replacing another. Modern archaeology tells us more. Excavations in Istanbul have uncovered mass graves. bodies buried hastily, broken bones, skulls with sword cuts, the physical evidence of the final battle. Chemical analysis of bones shows signs of malnutrition. The defenders were starving. They fought on empty stomachs. Their bodies were already failing before the final assault. Metallurgy analysis of cannonballs shows the sophistication of Ottoman artillery, the precision of the bronze casting, the chemistry of the gunpowder. This was not primitive technology. This was cutting-edge military science. The Ottomans won because they invested in research, in engineering, in technology. The Byzantines lost because they clung to tradition, to old methods, to the belief that God would protect them. God did not protect them. Technology defeated them. This is the lesson. This is why the fall matters. It marks the moment when medieval warfare ended, when walls became obsolete, when gunpowder changed everything. The Theodosian Walls were the pinnacle of medieval fortification. They were defeated by bronze tubes filled with explosives. Every fortification built after 1453 had to account for cannon, had to be redesigned, lowered, thickened, angled to deflect cannonballs. The science of fortification changed. The science of siege warfare changed. The fall of Constantinople was the pivot point. Before, medieval. After, modern. But this technological explanation, while accurate, misses the human dimension. The fall of Constantinople was not just about technology. It was about faith, about identity, about what happens when a people's entire understanding of themselves is destroyed. The Byzantines believed they were chosen by God, that Constantinople was the new Jerusalem, that the empire was eternal. These beliefs sustained them through centuries of decline, through territorial losses, through economic collapse, through military defeats. As long as Constantinople stood, the empire continued. As long as the Hagia Sophia was Christian, God had not abandoned them. When the city fell, these beliefs shattered. Not slowly, instantly. On May 29, 1453, Byzantine identity died. The survivors had to construct new identities. Ottoman subjects, Greeks, but not Romans, Christians, but not imperial. This psychological transformation is the true horror, not the physical violence, but the erasure of meaning, the destruction of the narrative that made sense of their world. We return now to the Hagia Sophia, to the 7,000 people praying for an angel. We understand now why the angel did not come, not because God abandoned them, but because they were praying for the wrong thing. They were praying for military intervention. Athens did it to Melos. The Mongols did it to Baghdad. The pattern is universal. Conquest involves violence. Violence involves trauma. Trauma destroys cultures. The fall of Constantinople is not unique in this sense. What makes it significant is the scale, the historical importance, the finality. This was not just another city. This was the last remnant of the Roman Empire, the last link to classical antiquity. When Constantinople fell, Rome truly died. Not in 476 when the Western Empire collapsed, but in 1453, when the Eastern Empire fell. This is why historians remember the date, why it appears in textbooks, why documentaries are made about it. Not because the violence was exceptional, but because the loss was irreplaceable. In the National Library of France, there is a manuscript. It is a copy of the Chronicle of George Sfrances. Sfrances was a Byzantine official, a friend of Constantine XI. He was present during the siege. He survived. He was enslaved, later ransomed. He wrote his chronicle in exile. He describes the final days of the empire. He describes Constantine's last speech. He describes the breaching of the walls. And then he stops. He cannot describe what happened in the Hagia Sophia. He writes only, "I cannot bear to write of the horrors. Let God judge." This silence is more powerful than any description, because some things cannot be written. Some experiences destroy language. Some horrors are too great for words. The fall of Constantinople is one of those events. We can list the facts, the dates, the numbers, but we cannot capture the experience. The terror of those 7,000 people, the desperation of Constantine XI, the grief of the survivors. These things are lost, buried in the silence of trauma. What remains is the physical city, Istanbul, a thriving metropolis of 15 million people, a city of mosques and markets, of traffic and tourists. The Hagia Sophia still stands. The walls still stand. But they are monuments now, relics of a dead empire. Tourists take photographs. Historians give lectures. No one remembers the screaming. No one hears the prayers that went unanswered. No one sees the blood that stained the marble. Time has erased the trauma, replaced it with narrative, with dates and names and political analysis. This is what history does. It transforms lived experience into information. It makes the unbearable bearable. It turns horror into lessons. But the lesson of Constantinople is not comforting. The lesson is that nothing lasts. No empire is eternal. No walls are impregnable. No faith is protection against technology. No amount of prayer can stop bronze cannonballs. The Byzantines learned this lesson too late. By the time they understood, the city was already lost. The question is whether we have learned it. Whether we understand that our own certainties are as fragile as theirs. That our own cities could fall. That our own beliefs could be shattered. That we too could find ourselves waiting for an angel that never comes. History does not repeat, but it rhymes. And the fall of Constantinople is a rhyme we should remember. Not because it was tragic, but because it was preventable. The Byzantines could have modernized their military, could have invested in cannon, could have reformed their government, could have built alliances, could have adapted to the changing world. They chose not to. They chose tradition over innovation, theology over technology, faith over strategy, and they paid for that choice with their empire, with their city, with their lives. This is the lesson. This is why the fall matters. Not because it was the end of Rome, but because it shows what happens when a civilization stops adapting, when it clings to the past instead of preparing for the future, when it prays instead of planning. The angel never comes. The walls always fall. The empire always ends. The only question is whether we learn from those who fell before us, or whether we too will wait for divine intervention while the world changes around us. Constantinople waited, and Constantinople fell. The date is May 29th, 1453. The sun sets over the Golden Horn. The city that has stood for 1,123 years is silent now. The screaming has stopped. The prayers have ended. The walls still stand, but they guard nothing. Inside the Hagia Sophia, blood dries on marble floors. The dome still soars, but it soars over emptiness. The people are gone, sold, scattered, dead. The empire is finished. Rome has fallen for the last time. And in the silence, if you listen carefully, you can almost hear it. The sound of a priest holding a chalice, waiting inside a wall, waiting for a restoration that will never come, waiting forever. ND. This has been a Warpath Warriors documentary. History doesn't repeat, but its lessons echo through time.